Hi everyone, it's Ben Sondgeroth with EdTech Teacher. Today I wanted to talk about Google Forms. So I'm going to give a quick introduction and then this will be a very basic overview of Google Forms. So if you've never experienced with Google Forms before, then this is your tutorial. So Google Forms is an awesome data collection tool available through the G Suite for EDU services. And it's great for creating assessments where students have to choose from different question types, multiple choice, short answer, paragraph text, things like that. But it's also great for other uses. I know a lot of teachers use it for form or for data collection. So you can easily collect Google Docs with this by having students enter in data. With the new update, you can now have students insert images and upload files through Google Forms. So it's awesome for collecting data and information from students. Also think about using it for surveys where you can collect information from parents or other staff members or even your kiddos. So if you want to have like an information collection night where you're gathering all the stuff from like a back to school night about parents, contact numbers, that type of thing, Google Forms might be for you. So we're going to look at really quickly how to build a Google form. All right. So what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at Google Forms, and this is a blank form. So you can see, like any other Google Doc, okay, you can name it up in the top. So we're going to name this our ETT blank form. All right, and when I click that, it automatically updates the name of the form, but you can change that. It doesn't have to be named ETT. You can see the next step down, we have the form description. So in here, I can give my students instructions on how I want them to complete the form. And then after that, we have the question area. So down here, if I click on the first untitled question that defaults, you can see it defaults to multiple choice. And I can enter my options in. So one of the new features inside of Google Forms is that it guesses your questions for you. So I can say, what is your name? And as it updates, you can see it actually changes to a short answer question. So this is a nice feature. It automatically guesses what type of question you want to ask, and there you go. So I'll start with a short answer here. Okay, so with a short answer, your students will only get, or your respondents will only get a small text line to respond to. So this is great for like collecting email addresses or names, things like that. Okay, for other longer responses, you're going to need a different question type. So to get a new question, go over to the right-hand side and find your plus button, and that's going to be Add Question. When I click on that, okay, you see I get a new question area down here. If I click on the drop down, if I maybe don't want to have it guess what type of question I'm going to go, so I'm going to click on the drop down menu over here on the right, and now I have all the different types of questions I can put into my Google form. So you can see we already talked about short answer. Paragraph is going to be a longer response text, so students are going to be able to enter in a very extended response. Then you have multiple choice, where you can put in different options. We are all pretty familiar with multiple choice, I'm sure. Checkboxes allow students to select more than one response inside of their Google form question. Drop-down menus allow for you to put in a number of different responses, but it's only going to, instead of displaying all of them in a list, when the student sees the question, they're just going to see one box and they click on it and they will find all of the other options that they can select for that. So it's a nice way to kind of simplify a longer option list into one drop-down box. File upload, so this is only available for EDU accounts and business accounts. Okay, so it has to be a student or a person that's filling this out has to be in your domain in order to have this option. So with a file upload, it gives the respondent a chance to submit a file, and then when they do that, it creates a new Google Drive folder for you, the person who's collecting all the information, and then also puts a link to that file inside of your responses area up here. Awesome for collecting outside of Google Apps files, but then also if you're using an iPad, you can use this to get to the camera roll, and students can upload pictures directly to you from their iPad as they're using that to respond to the Google form. So pretty cool. Linear scale is a Likert scale, so that's going to be like your 1 to 5 option here. So students will have a different bubble to pick between 1 to 5. You can go all the way up to 10 if you so choose. Multiple choice grid, so what this is going to do is going to give you a bunch of different options here. So you can have multiple different things in this row, and then you can see you can keep adding them. As you add columns to the right, then your grid is going to grow out. All right, so kind of a cool way to say, how familiar are you with these different topics over here, and then in your columns across, you could have very familiar, somewhat familiar, not familiar at all, that type of thing. That's how you would use a multiple choice grid. The next two are date and time. Okay, so for a date, you have your respondents ask your respondents to pick a date and time. A date for that one, and time would be the same for this. So you can say, hey, pick a date. Pick a date for me to come to the school and volunteer. That would be something that you could do there. So that is the various question types. Okay, so you have a lot of different options available to you. So I'm going to go back to multiple choice here, and I'm going to say something like, do you want to come on the trip? You can see that Google actually is smart in that it starts to think about what suggestions you should have for your questions. So you can see that I can actually add all of these in, and now I have my 3 different responses here. Pretty cool. The other thing that's kind of neat about this is inside of multiple choice, so great for elementary teachers here, you can actually add images as choices for each one. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pick a couple of dummy images here. So we'll grab this one and drop it in, and then you can see, so now that is going to be an option for the first response. I can grab another image, bring it in. We'll go ahead and bring in a picture of the San Diego Bay, and now that'll show up there, and I can put as many more in as I want to. You can also see that when I hover over top of the question type, okay, or the question text, you have another area to add an image. So now that image will be embedded in with the question at the top. So you can ask a specific question about an image, and it can all be together. A great new update inside of Forms. All right, so we'll say that's good. Now, one other thing to note is that you can duplicate your questions down at the bottom. So if you want to use like these same images for the next question, you can just click this and it'll duplicate and make another question. So I could change the text up here if I wanted to, but I'd still have the same answers. Want to get rid of it, I can click the delete button. If I want to make it required, so if I slide that over, now people can have to answer this question before hitting submit. So great for like something like include your name on the Google form and then make that question required, so that way they can't submit it without including their name. The 3 dots in every single question type are a little bit different, okay? But you want to see what these do for each different question. So like for a multiple choice, you can see that you get a descriptions, and that can give you like a hint text, so I can explain my question a little bit more. Great for maybe littles or even just longer questions you want to make sure students are answering them correctly. The next one is go to section based on answers, so that's a little bit more advanced, but if you wanted to say have your participant or your respondents answer some questions, and then if you say, hey, if you answered yes to this question, you're going to skip ahead to page 3. So you could ignore a couple of spots on the form. So that's how you would do that here. And then also if you're giving an assessment and you want to make sure your options are different for every student that's taking it, you could say shuffle questions or shuffle option order. So that'll mix up your answers on a multiple choice. And as I said, they're all a little bit different depending on what type of question you are answering. So like right here, all I have for a short answer is description and data validation. So data validation is going to be something that I can put in here that's going to make sure that the response to my question meets a certain criteria. So for example, I can say make sure that this is a email address. Okay, so I could say text contains email address. And then if I said, what is your email address, and somebody typed in something that wasn't a valid email address, it would not let them submit that answer. So you might want to consider using data validation if it is a part of your assessment. So that is kind of the introduction to Google Forms. So how to create questions and the various ways that you might be able to implement it in your classroom. There's a lot more to Google Forms. I've actually got a couple of other screencasts that'll follow this one up. So feel free to watch part 2 after this. And I hope you took away some great ideas on how to use Google Forms in your classroom.